But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this Louie T Network exclusive. Earl Thomas has been released by the Baltimore Ravens. This is a move that a lot of people thought might have taken place after the altercation at practice a couple of days ago. We're about 48 hours removed from Earl Thomas getting into a spat with fellow ex-teammate Chuck Clark, the safety of the Ravens. Earl Thomas blew a coverage in practice, resulted in a touchdown. Chuck Clark not happy about that occurrence, takes his helmet off, slams it in frustration. Earl Thomas takes umbrage to it. Words are exchanged. Earl Thomas then hauls off and hits Chuck Clark in the face. He was sent home from practice after that. He then went home, posted on IG what really happened with a video attached. Later deleted that post and tore that down, but the damage was done. Bridges have been burned, and at some point something was going to be done, whether the Baltimore Ravens decided to move him in a trade or outright released him. And outright released him, they ultimately decided to do. Now here's the thing, it could get a little tricky for the Ravens and a little bit murky. They're looking to recoup their $10 million that was owed to Earl Thomas this offseason, or this regular season upcoming year. But that's probably not going to happen. A grievance has been filed. Earl Thomas also going to have a grievance filed on his behalf by the NFLPA. Bottom line is he's got language in his contract that states he can be, this money can be sought after if he is suspended for conduct detrimental to the team. He was fined for conduct detrimental to the team. So a little bit different there. Looks like he's probably going to ultimately get this money. So if you're the Ravens, not at all happy about 1 year of service, $22 million spent. That's not what they had in mind when they offered up this massive deal to get Earl Thomas last offseason. But I'm really interested to see where he ultimately ends up, because I want to say this before we move on to the next question I'm going to pose. And that's, Earl Thomas isn't the same guy that he once was. I think this whole narrative of Earl Thomas, Legion of Boom, Earl Thomas flying around the football field, middle of the field, ball hawking safety, covering all areas of the football field from red line to red line. This is a guy that can cover everywhere. He's not that guy anymore. And he's 31 years old. He did not look like Earl Thomas of old last season. He just looked like old Earl Thomas last season. And ask any Baltimore Ravens fan, they will tell you he gave up big plays at times last year. He was still solid, okay? Better than half of the safeties in the league, okay? But he's not elite any longer. I don't think that guy exists anymore. And so I think there's this narrative out there that you're still getting Seattle Earl Thomas. You're not getting that guy anymore. He's not that player that he once was. I think he's now living off of reputation. And so it'll be interesting to see where he goes next. Speaking of which, the rumor out on the street is he's going to end up potentially in Dallas. Okay. Remember, once upon a time, this was a guy that told the Cowboys, please come and get me. Okay. So this isn't new news. He's wanted to go to Dallas for quite some time. The Cowboys didn't have the financial means to make that happen last offseason when he was a free agent. They've now since made some moves, releasing Gerald McCoy, which freed up $7 million. They restructured the deal of another player, freed up another $3 million. So they've got about roughly $10 million under the cap. They've got some maneuverability if they want to do this. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm saving up all my coins to re-sign Dak Prescott in the offseason. I wouldn't tap into the Dak Prescott reserve fund if I were them. But if this is a 1 year deal, which it may be, again, he's 31 years old. Who's looking to lock up a 31-year-old safety for 3 to 4 years? Not me. I can say that. So maybe the Cowboys are interested in a 1 year rental to see what this guy is all about. And if he plays really well, maybe they'll have a discussion at the end of the season. And if this is, in fact, a 1 year deal, I'm on board with that. If you're Dallas, you go and get this guy for 1 year. You see what he brings to the table. If you like what you see, maybe you have a discussion with him at the season's end. But right now, if you're Dallas, I don't think the smart thing to do is invest a long-term deal. 2-3 years is too many years for Earl Thomas at this point, especially coming off the season he had last year. Need I remind you of what happened in the AFC Championship game last year AFC divisional round against the Tennessee Titans. He wants no parts of Derrick Henry. Should I remind you of that stiff arm that he caught? A two-piece combination from Derrick Henry. he's not the same Earl Thomas. So I wouldn't be so gung-ho to go out and spend a bunch of money to bring Earl Thomas in. There are a lot of fans of different fan bases like, oh, we got to go get Earl Thomas. You aren't getting Earl Thomas from 5 years ago. You're not even getting Earl Thomas of 3 years ago. You're getting the Earl Thomas that we saw last year. He's on the wrong side of 30. Buyer beware. That's all I'm going to say. But again, let me reiterate. It's not like this guy still can't play, and he's still better than about 50 to 60% of the safeties in the league. Let me reiterate that. Okay, he's still good. He's just not great. So keep that in mind. But it seems like destiny that he ends up in Dallas, the place that, honestly, he's wanted to be all along. Remember, this is a Texas kid that went to the University of Texas. He wants to be back in the state of Texas. He'd love to play for America's team and Jersey boys. But money talks and everything else walks, as we've seen in the past with him. Remember, this is the same guy that gave Kansas City a verbal agreement. Talked to Andy Reid, told him he was going to come to Kansas City on a one-year deal, woke up the next day, had a better offer from Baltimore, and reneged on that. I'm not going to blame him for that. That was some big money. Look, this guy just spent a year in Baltimore and may possibly be walking away with $22 million. So I'm not blaming him for making that decision. But this is a guy with some off-the-field issues. He was at gunpoint with his wife. He's got a lot of things going on. So before you rush to go out and get you some Earl Thomas, just know that there is baggage here. Second time in 3 years, he's exited a building under some really ugly circumstances. This is a guy that has some baggage, and he's always been one to flap off at the mouth, okay? Flap his gums. It's one thing when you're an all-pro baller, okay? It's another thing when you're the one out there making mistakes and you still want to run your mouth. Know who you're bringing into your locker room. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Earl Thomas is available. Buyer beware. But the guy can still play. Not at an elite level, but he can still help. We'll see where he ends up. My money's on Dallas. I'd love to see him there because I think things are really explosive there. And a guy like Earl Thomas could be the reason it blows up to smithereens, as it usually does in Dallas. We'll see what happens. But I'm your man, Louie T. Signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. So don't forget, if you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Sub up this channel. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss a thing. And also, while you're here, like the video. All right. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys, take care. Have a good one.